Mama, you're so good. You're so good.
How do you feel about your online school, Kingston?
Good.
You feel good about it?
Yeah.
You do? You like school online on the computer?
Yeah.
Okay. Is Mommy good at helping you with your schoolwork on the computer?
Absolutely.
Why, thank you. What would you like better about school? Or what can I do to help improve your school experience?
Well, you can help me improve my school by giving me a hug.
Oh, baby. Now he's gonna make me seem like a monster when I start talking like. I am love bug. All right, are you going up to bed now?
I need to get a book.
Yeah. Okay then. All right then. That's fine. That's fine. You're listening to Off Color, a podcast where we talk about race, identity, politics, parenthood, motherhood, and other uncomfortable things. I'm your host, Rebecca Henderson, aka the Tan Tigress.
And I'm your producer, Janice Matsko, aka Janice of European descent.
Hi, Janice.
Hi.
Oh my God. It's Monday. It's when our podcast should have been up, but it isn't because it's a pandemic, bitches, and no one's paying us. So who cares? Am I right?
Yeah.
Let's see. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. We had a pretty good day.
So on Saturday, we participate in this thing called Freedom School, which is for Black and brown Indigenous kids and their parents. It's open to everyone, but it is intentionally for Black kids and Indigenous kids. One of the things he's been a guest on our show many times, H Soul Hasira Ashimu, he said something really profound. I felt like it was just him saying we are not going back to normal,
right?
Because normal was, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but because normal was garbage.
Yeah.
A big part of that is school, right? So that's like what I'm focused on. I know that people who don't have school-age children, or who are not teachers, or who are not custodians, or who are not, people working in the schools are not as concerned about it as those of us with school-age children. And so knowing that things are not going to change anytime soon is really daunting.
Yeah.
I would like therapy now, Janice. Give me therapy.
Eventually, there will be good things that come out of this, increasing accessibility, potentially decreasing the digital divide. But at this point, the problems and the struggles are so glaringly apparent that it just is painful for everyone involved. And pain is the great equalizer. Pain is the universal constant.
And shitting your pants. As we know.
Pain is a universal constant, and as much as we try and avoid it, it's how we learn and grow, but it sucks in the present time, and it sucks for some people more than others.
Yeah, and I know that for me, it's not that bad. Like, I know that,
Yeah.
I currently have everything that I need. And so the thought of how I'm handling educating my child during this pandemic and how the impact that it's having on me, I shudder to think about people who don't have even their basic needs being met now, or who are worried or people who are going to get evicted, or people who have this housing insecurity. And I feel like my hope is on some kind of life support right now. You know what I mean? I'm like, should I unplug my hope, or should I keep praying hope is going to wake up,
It just needs
to
transform. Let's transform our hope into action. And
fine, I'll transform my hope into action. But what I really want to transform is and now I'm just going to keep it real, okay? I do want people to feel bad for me, even though I am well aware of the blessings and the fortune in my life. I still would like people to acknowledge that some of us are really having a hard time, particularly the mothers.
And as part of hashtag Team No Kids, I feel for you. I see how hard the struggle is every time I call you. And how
Bitch,
much
I'm gonna cry.
Me too. How much stress there is. To see it. It's different to hear your friends like, bitch and moan about it or complain and that kind of thing. But when I call you on FaceTime and it's like, it's crazy for 5 minutes, let alone to have that be like your entire life. So
12 hours a day. And can someone please explain to me why my child has to wake up at like 6:30 in the morning and then won't go to bed until like 11 o'clock at night? Like,
yeah.
we're so thank you for acknowledging that and seeing me. It is challenging. It is not as challenging as many things, but that's been really hard. And so for this episode, I actually talked to a few parents and we had people submit some of their stories about going back to school during the coronavirus, during COVID-19.
So in episode 3, we talked to the school board member and a professor and a DPS mom, and we got some of the insights about what the potential was going to be like for kids going back to school. And then we got some sound bites for a bonus episode from teachers and what their thoughts were about going back to school. But at that point, it was all theoretical. It was all hypothetical.
Yeah.
But now it's real. Decisions have been made.
Oh, it's real, bitch.
Yeah.
It's real. I'm teaching. I'm the kindergarten teacher now.
Yes, I do want to acknowledge that parents are having to do a significant amount of work in the day-to-day teaching that they weren't originally involved in. There is still a teacher facilitating lesson plans, and those teachers are also being counselors and for the kids and for the parents. Yeah. They're being tech support just like the parents are. Everybody's trying to figure it out. It's tempting sometimes to think like, well, I might as well just be doing a homeschool curriculum and doing it all myself. But I think there's another level beyond the virtual learning thing of homeschooling fully that maybe sometimes that calculation isn't fully understood.
Listen, the whole thing is fucking crazy. Let's just keep it real, okay? I don't know what other people are doing, and that's also part of why I wanted to talk to other people and see how their online experience was going, right? Yeah. And so I did that.
You sent me some files of these interviews that you had with your friends. Honestly, I wouldn't even call them interviews. It was just like candid conversations.
It was just real talk, like I always do. Okay, so this first conversation that I sent you was with a friend of mine named Alexis, and she told me like what is going on with her and her husband and her kids and the homeschooling. I mean, not homeschooling, the virtual learning. And it was like, yeah, I don't even know. Can you just roll the clip?
My name is Alexis, and I am from Oakland, California, or I live in Oakland, California. And my kids are 8 and 11.
Okay, and your kids are currently, the school has started, correct?
School has started. School started August 10th.
What?
And yeah, what? And my 11-year-old is in 7th grade, and my 8-year-old is in 3rd grade. And they're at 2 different schools. And school started August 10th. And for the first 2.5 weeks, they both had about 45 minutes to an hour of instruction a day. And the rest of the time was just unstructured.
And then, so how were you dealing with this unstructured time as a working mom?
I wasn't dealing with it. I worked, and I don't know what they did the rest of the day. It was sort of a free range parenting. I was so busy and overwhelmed with my own job that I didn't even really think very hard about the quality of their education during that time. In some ways, I was very thankful that I was not being expected to participate and facilitate their education for them for massive amounts of time during the day because my work schedule just didn't allow that. What I did end up doing was schlepping them to and from things socially, bike rides with friends and swimming time in someone's backyard who's in our pod of people. And that alone was so taxing on my mental health that I could barely keep up because I would be, I'd have to get the bike into the back of the car and get Theo dropped off by 12:45 and be on a conference call at 1 and stay on the conference call until 4. And so I would still be on the call when I drove to pick him up. And then I'd dismantle the bike and put it in the back of the car and drive him home and, figure out how I was going to feed them dinner. And at that point, I'd managed to work a total of maybe 3 uninterrupted hours. And so I would get back on my computer at 7:30 at night and work until 10, 12, 1 until I could finish the work that I had to finish for the day. It was hell. And when they started school for real, 3 weeks in, OUSD got a contract with the teachers union and they started, lesson planning for real. And now they're doing a much more robust schedule of classes. They're, in school for a realistic amount of time, for the same amount of time that they would have been in for in-person instruction. And I did about a week and a half of that solo, and it was so much worse than the 45 minutes of instruction because they actually have to pay attention and learn things. And, that works for my 11-year-old. He's fairly self-sufficient. He can stick with it and understand what the expectation of his time is and what he needs to get done and when he needs to get it done by, as long as I check in with him, a couple of times during the day and make sure I go through his assignments with him. No more so than I probably would have to if he were in in-person instruction. But the 8-year-old is incapable of staying focused for that much time without me sitting next to him and physically reinforcing for him all day long how to stay in place and stay focused and pay attention. I sat next to him side by side while I did my work. I had a conference call in one ear, and the whole time I'm on mute and I'm saying to him, Archer, sit down. Archer, you got to sit down. You got to focus. You can't spin on your stool right now. Archer, the teacher is saying you need to get a pencil out. Archer, where's your pencil? And then he's like, I have to go to the bathroom. And he runs to the bathroom and gets a snack. And I'm chasing him around the house saying, you got to come back and sit down. She's asking questions. You got to get out your math notebook, and, all the while. And then I'm like unmuting myself and talking to my work colleagues and muting myself again and screaming at him. There was I swore a lot at my children.
So now you did something kind of extreme. Are you allowed to talk about it?
Okay.
Is it?
Yeah, my husband has a job where he has to actually be in the office every day. And his work schedule is fairly robust as well. So he, leaves the house at 8 o'clock and doesn't get home till 7. And so he's not able to be, physically present to help with the kids' schooling at all. And I had kind of a mental breakdown and declared myself incapable of doing all of it by myself. Stormed out of the house one Saturday and said, I don't know how to fix this, and I don't know when I'm coming back. And after I came back, I spent a long day and by myself thinking about it. I came back and my husband said, we have to sit down and we have to come up with a different plan because this is obviously not working. So we went through an exercise called an A3, which is a lean construction technique, which is something that we do in both of our industries. Lord help us, where you identify the scenario, you identify the situation you're in, you write it down, you identify what the ideal situation looks like, and then you come up with various alternatives that might help you get there, and then you test them. And if it doesn't work, you adjust. So you test, adjust, test. And it was helpful because we had been in this stasis since March, not sure how to push forward or what to do or how to solve any of these problems, just waiting and waiting and waiting for COVID to turn, for, our delinquent administration to step up and start doing its job, none of which happened. So we are in this situation where we don't know when school is going to be back in session in person. We don't anticipate it's going to be anytime soon. And we decided that it was probably a good idea for me to take my kids to my parents in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and pod with them because they offered to help with homeschooling, and they could sit and police my 8-year-old all day long to sit still in his chair and do his homework while I actually do my job. So we piled everybody into the car 3 weeks later, and we drove across the country with them and quarantined for 2 weeks. And now we are in Minneapolis. I rented an apartment, and my parents are taking over the schooling for my kids so that I can work. And I recognize what an extraordinarily privileged position I'm in, because not everybody has the means to pick up their whole life and move it across the country. Not everybody has family that's capable or willing to do this kind of volunteer service to help take care of their kids. I have no idea how single parents are managing this. I have no idea how people who've lost their jobs and are trying to apply for jobs and find work and are trying to homeschool their children are doing this. I'm barely managing with an enormous wealth of resources.
We're overwhelmed, and as women and as wives and working moms and all those things, it's like it was already piled so high on top of us before COVID. I think it's kind of a miracle that more people haven't straight up snapped by now.
Yeah.
For real.
It's really laying bare not only the incredible disparities in the way that we allocate resources in our country for, taking care of people who are living in poverty, living, lives without enough resources, without enough support, but we're also seeing just how extraordinarily bankrupt our childcare system is in this country to support working parents. And it's a goddamn miracle our economy still works.
Would you send your kids to school in person? Would you put them in a private school and send them in person?
I would not.
Why wouldn't you? Tell me that. Why?
Because I don't think that there's enough consistent regulation at a federal level for virus control. I think that it's just the Wild West out there. And you might be able to find a school where you feel like the administration is doing a really good job setting boundaries and expectations for families that are sending their kids in person and everybody's masking. But the truth is that without any sort of strong federal mandate to follow any rules, I don't know that you can trust any situation to truly be, even foolproof enough to prevent spread.
Yeah. Nah.
As much as I would love to have my children the hell out of my house. It's a mess.
We had back to school night last night. Girl, I straight up asked the teacher. I was like, because people were like, well, when are we going back? That was what all the parents were saying. I was like, are these people idiots? And I asked the teacher, and I was like, no, excuse me, I have a question, zoom in. And I'm just like, how do you feel about going back into the classroom? Would you go back into the classroom? And she was like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, bitch, of course you wouldn't. I wouldn't want to go in there, and I never would expect you to. I'm like, keep teaching them on the Google Zoom, girl. They'll be fine. They're in kindergarten. I'm not
Yeah,
even
kids
worried
are in
about it.
kindergarten. They don't need to do anything all year.
It's
I
so
mean, really, my third grader doesn't actually need to do anything either.
girl, this is so crazy. They had on their mission statement, they were like, we want like Black excellence or something. And I was like, excuse me, you guys have Black excellence. I had never
You're like,
seen
how many Black people do you have?
I
in
haven't
this
seen that.
school?
And then the principal was like, well, it's diverse. It's getting better. We have students of color. I didn't say students of color. I said Black students. You wrote
Well, if
Black
they're
excellence.
saying Black
You
excellence.
didn't write Black and brown excellence. You wrote Black excellence. And I want to know where these Black excellence students is, because I know you're counting my son and you see what he looks like. We say he's Black because he is, but that's not the point. Like, I know what's up. So it was really that part to me. And so what percent of the school is Black?
What?
2%.
Woo!
So it's like 9 kids. It's like 1 per classroom.
All
And
9 of those kids better be excelling like nobody's business.
They're not. You know what happens to them, right?
Well, and one of the things that I find most difficult about the public school, private school conversation amongst my peers is that, all of these people that I know who have their kids in private school had their kids in public school in elementary school and then moved them to private school in middle school because the catchment zones for middle school are much larger. And so the population base is much more diverse across all of the schools within OUSD. And, that diversity, makes it harder to serve the populations with very tailored curriculum for kids who are excelling or who have a lot of support at home. And so it's the playing field is just very different than it was in elementary school, where we have a much smaller pool of kids and they're all really wealthy and they all have incredible resources. And so a lot of parents took their kids out of public school and put them in private school. And I had a very difficult time and lost some friendships over the course of that transition because I just can't get behind the excuses that people make to justify the decision to take their kids out of public school. There's just a real unwillingness to acknowledge that it's motivated by racism and a fear of, the resources that you expect for your children going to be sucked up by kids that will use them in ways that you don't feel are worthwhile.
Okay. I want to stop and thank you, baby. And then also, is there anything like you want to add that I didn't ask you, or something you just kind of you wouldn't mind people knowing or think they should hear?
I mean, I think that I worry a lot about my own kids and their welfare and well-being in the midst of all of this. And I also think I'm raising 2 white boys. They're going to be just fine no matter what happens. And then I worry a lot about all the people who are not raising 2 little white boys and how hard and how long lasting the ramifications of this period in our lives are going to be.
She rented an apartment. Like when she's in an apartment and for you, what stood out?
How far everyone is being pushed to the brink of things. That she basically walked out on her family, and just said, I'm done. I'm not coming back, figure it out. Obviously that was short-lived, and her and her husband did a great job of working together as a true partnership and a team to figure it out, figure out a solution. But that is not a solution that most people have access to.
That part. I felt the same way because
to split their family into 2 different states.
No,
and
I know. So that part to me was really, that also was something that like really like hit me, is the thought of like, who could do that? Because bitch, trust me, I wish I could, you know. And they were the same as me, and my husband and kid is like, they're like alone out there, you know, like how we are here. We're alone. We don't have someone that we don't have parents to help us or to watch our kid. And so like, I wish I could go to New York and like stay with my dad and my sister and just like be able to live.
Yeah. It just goes to show you, you know, how important family is. I think sometimes we forget what an incredible resource family is, and whether it's by choice or not, there's so many people in this world that are separated from their families in one way or another, or their families have turned their back on them, you know. And
I know, man, it's a crazy world. The next conversation that I had sent you was the one with,
and the other one you sent me was JC, and he just submitted a clip talking about his experience and a couple of tips and tricks for other parents that he's picked up on. He's the primary educator, or he's the primary caregiver,
I guess, in
his family.
He's supervising his kids' schoolwork, I believe, because they have a new baby. So I feel like mom, and I think they both work too, don't they? Anyway, play it, and then I'll remember.
Okay.
Hi, my name is JC Futrell, and I am the proud father of a 6-year-old first grader at a DPS school, and we've been remote learning for the past 2.5 weeks. And this experience, to be 100% honest, has been a real struggle. Both my wife and I are full-time working adults, and we also have a brand new 10-month-old daughter in the house as well. And so it's made remote learning very difficult. We don't feel like our son is getting the kind of experience that we had hoped for this year, especially since we were hoping to get him into an accelerated program, which they have available for first graders, or had available for first graders. And so through this process, we've had a lot of trial and error. There have been some things that have worked. There have been some things that have not worked. But one thing that we do know is that our son can't be left alone for 4 hours to figure out this remote learning thing on his own. Often he is being guided off of the main conference call, which, you know, by the way, like, we've all kind of like discovered conference calling within the last 6 months, and I'm still trying to figure out how to work through Zoom. So to ask our first graders, second graders, third graders, you know, even up to high school, to be able to navigate through this stuff without any previous other, you know, training or experience is ridiculous. And you know, just the model that DPS is using right now isn't sustainable. So I'm really hoping that something else can happen in order to make this work for our kids. But I've picked up a few tips around the way. I think that having your child using wireless earbuds throughout the experience is essential. They can keep one earbud, you can keep another, so that while you're working during the day, you can check in from time to time to make sure that your student isn't lost or behind in whatever lesson or conversation that they're in the middle of. Having a stylus, if you're using an iPad or a tablet, is essential. Having your kids use their fingers to do their writing just, you know, isn't you know, anything that we would ask of them if they were actually in school. So having some kind of writing tool that they can use for their tablet or touch devices is also essential. And being engaged, you know, you're still their parents, and no one can teach them better than you can. So make things fun. Set up different workstations throughout the house. When your kids are working on art, make it fun art. When they're working on science, do some cool building projects or engineering projects. You probably have Legos or Diplo or some other kind of building things in your house. And when you get to history, teach them the history you want them to know. I think it's essential during this time that we don't let our kids down. It used to be that parents were responsible for educating their kids in the first place, and this model of public school where we don't see our kids for 9-10 hours a day, sometimes even more if the kids are involved in sports, and then expecting them to be able to figure it out on their own wasn't sustainable either. So reinvent your education, reinvent the way that your kids engage, and do the best you can. I'm rooting for you.
All right, girl. What stuck out for you? Again, I'm sorry to be like repeating that, but it's because like I listened to it and then I don't know why I'm like obsessed with knowing what you think. I don't know if I'm like internalizing it because I'm like, I need to know what this white lady thinks, or am I thinking I just want to know what my childless friend is feeling when she hears these things.
Hashtag team no kids.
I should have been on that team.
It's a pretty sweet team, not gonna lie. Yeah, like I wasn't near like close by when my nephews were born. They live in Indiana, and so like I didn't necessarily see full time what it was like to have a newborn, but I definitely heard a lot of stories from my sister and how exhausting it was just to raise two very young kids without a pandemic going on. How drained she was from like breastfeeding all the time and also working and being away from her babies and that kind of thing. So yeah, to also have to have them in the house and keep a baby quiet while the other one is in school and that kind of thing. But the other thing that really jumped out at me was that some of his tips and tricks involved like buying additional equipment. Like I've heard so many of the conversations about the virtual learning and the digital divide of like, okay, well, we'll just help fund the school so they can give all the kids Chromebooks and then the problem will be solved.
Yeah, because you can't even access half of the school sites on a Chromebook.
Yeah. There's access issues. And some kids don't even have internet. I've seen so many stories about how, like there's young kids sitting outside of a Taco Bell, like using their free internet. They're just trying to get access to the internet to do their schoolwork. And then, those are great ideas to use the AirPods and the stylus and that kind of thing. But that costs extra money that not every family has access to. And so it just kind of extra highlights that like digital divide. Our friend was in town this weekend visiting from the Chicago area, and she was telling me about one of the policies of the school district in that area is they're not allowed to use virtual backgrounds.
Oh, so they can't use virtual backgrounds.
Right, like of any kind. They're not allowed to put up a virtual background. So then there's a very high percentage of children in that district that are homeless. And so they're doing their schoolwork in their family's car parked in front of, a Taco Bell or a Starbucks or whatever. And the rest of their classmates can see that they're just like in a car with other people and like all of their belongings and stuff. They can't cover it up.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
So that I've actually been on a call with, because I do that mentor thing at the school with the kids. And so like check out from our season episode where we had the kids, like I was in a call for that. And you know what I mean? Like there's like babies everywhere. I'm like, how are these teenagers supposed to do their homework? They're like watching all their little siblings and shit and they're like crawling all over them. Like if I can't handle my 5-year-old, I'm like, how are we expecting these 15-year-olds to like, Oh my God. Yes, there's so much. It's just, again, it goes back to this idea that like nothing's going back to normal and that what was in existence before wasn't so great, really, for so many people. Those divides and the things that we're concerned about, for our most vulnerable student populations across the country.
Like that kid that got a police officer sent to his house because of his Nerf gun that he was playing with in his own house. And now he has a record of brandishing a weapon in a school.
What if they like pretend to cough on a teacher or like, I know that sounds, but I'm like, just another way to be like school to prison pipeline.
Right. But I mean, the younger kids, I fully believe will be okay. They will have issues, but they will be very specific issues. And there's still time to catch up and correct some of those things and address those issues. Some of the older kids that are in high school, like they're making career and college decisions. They're to the point where they're like almost entering the quote unquote real world, right? And they have no idea what it's going to look like because none of us have any idea what it's going to look like. So being a parent of an older kid, I feel like would be way more stressful.
For like the outcomes for their life. Yeah. I agree. I can't disagree because I'm like, it's only stressful for me because I'm like, this sucks. But like, yeah, I totally agree. Like, ugh, what a nightmare. And then, but on the other side of it, I do also feel like people with the teenagers, like their kids, like go in their rooms and like watch TV and on their phones,
exactly. They should be self-sufficient, 90%
Although
of the time.
my kids, the students I work with, they work. They're at their jobs at Walmart, Dairy Queen and shit.
Yeah. Well, you talked to Katrina.
Katrina's a longtime friend. Her husband was my previous producer, White James, and she is one of my favorite people, even though she is notoriously like cheerful and upbeat, which is not like a normal, like it's not something you would normally think that I would hang around with, but I still love her, even though she's really cheerful. So you can hear it in her voice. Roll the clip.
I am sickeningly optimistic. I'm sorry. Because I have one kid in 3rd grade who is a self-starter and she reads all day and she can already get on the Zoom meetings by herself and is better than a lot of my coworkers. And she is 7 and I pretty much just let her learn all day and it's very easy. And then I have my second kid who is in 1st grade, who was a nightmare in preschool in person and a nightmare in kindergarten in person. And I think is a little less of a nightmare at home with no distractions. So I'm sorry. I think online school is all right because we're in a pandemic. Obviously, I don't think they're learning as fully as they would be if they were in person. So, toss up for a Pani, it's okay.
The Pani, I invented that, by the way.
Yeah, you did, and I love it so much.
Kind of annoying that people don't respect me inventing the Pani. But I me and the person I am married to, also known as my husband, was like, we had some terrible fight about blah, blah, blah. And he said, like, it's hard, but it's not that hard. That's what he said to me.
Mhm.
That's like
Mhm.
murder words. You know what I mean? And then today, because he gets every other Friday off, because they work like 10-hour days or something, so they can have like every other Friday off. And I was like, I'm sleeping in tomorrow, and you do the school with him. Man, I heard him like, I heard him yelling. I heard him like he had to do it, and he was like, yeah, it's hard, and he had to apologize like 3 times because he was like, okay, I like didn't realize that it's like you can't. Also, if you're trying to do anything else, is my point, I think, because I'm trying to like finish this movie and do some creative work and write scripts and like do these things, and I cannot do it because I only have like 5-minute increments of time, and that is impossible. And so that to me is the real problem. So like you're working full time and your husband is working full time. Like how are you guys managing that?
This is not the first time I've been a work from home person, and that probably has a lot to do with it. When my oldest was from 1 to 2.5, I was freelancing from home. And so she started learning from the earliest age in those 1 to 2 minute increments that if I'm at the computer, you just have to keep yourself busy. And it starts off so annoying, but over time, she would play for like an hour all by herself next to me while I was working. Then I started working full time in person and have been doing that for the last 5 years. But that could be why she has some memory of parents at computer. They have said to entertain yourself or do what you're doing, and she does it. So I'm really lucky for that. The littler, younger one has never experienced that. However, that's only part of it. She just has behavioral issues that we are tackling. But then I feel for that too, because that is part of the reason of wanting the most at-risk kids to be able to learn in person. Like I am the poster beyond privileged person of a work from home opportunity, and my husband is teaching from home. So we do need headphones on and to be quiet. And my kids know when I'm on a conference call, you just don't ask for help right now, and you just have to wait. And on the one hand, they need to learn, and it's annoying that they have to keep a thought in their head. Like if they're struggling with math or something, I just can't help them right now. But I try to see the flip side of that, of learning patience, and just because you have a problem doesn't mean you're going to get immediate assistance and like instant gratification. Like I feel like delayed gratification has been our whole parenting technique, and now it's working.
I love that.
It's finally useful.
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we could talk about this. Is there anything I didn't ask you about that you kind of wanted to say or get off your chest or?
I guess yes, because not even because James is a teacher, my husband is a teacher, but I do hear a lot of people saying they're homeschooling, and I definitely want to point out homeschooling is completely different, and the parents are the teachers and the graders. And if you're ever going to put your kid in school, you have to keep track of the curriculum, you have to keep track of tests, you have to be monitoring their progress. And what we have to do right now is just kind of referee log on times, and make sure they're turning stuff in. And attendance is the main thing. And attendance is the biggest barrier. Again, super privileged. Just making attendance is something I don't even know what percentage of the school cannot even do. But if you are struggling with, remote learning, just remember that you have a teacher there for support and you have admin for support, and you're not in it alone, and you're not just homeschooling. Like, it's not just you and your kid. And I have totally had a really frustrating day with my younger one where I messaged the teacher after 30 minutes in the morning and I said, you know what, we're sitting this day out. She's not going to do it. We're having a really frustrating day. We'll make up the work later. And the teacher really appreciated that and said, yeah, no problem. As long as she's reading at some point today, you'll be fine. But, you know, they're also in elementary school. This is not middle and high school. This is not the lead up to college. So I feel kind of lucky that, you know, you and I, we can actually kind of write this off.
Yeah.
They're going to be okay. The end.
Ooh, that Katrina. That bitch is too jolly for me, man. She likes it. They're like happy. I like kind of hate them, to be honest.
The reason that they are having a little bit of a quote unquote easier time, if you will, is because this is not new to their family per se, right? The point that she made about having worked from home previously, and from a very young age, the kids understanding certain rules within the house and that delayed gratification thing. I mean, it goes back to that famous experiment with the marshmallows, and the kids that wait do way better in life, and the kids that just like eat the marshmallow and don't wait for the second one, like, are selfish assholes or whatever it says in the study. I don't know. But yeah, I think that is an important piece of that there was kind of like some previous training, if you will. I saw an article the other day that was talking about how those that will be successful in the future, like this next generation, the number one attribute that they need is to understand and be able to adapt to change. A kid that grows up and understands that things change, plans change in ways that you can never predict, and to be able to just be like, okay, then what do we need to do? Will be able to adapt to a future where everything will be changing all the time. Technology is moving so fast. The world is moving so fast that they can't get hung up on needing to know exactly what's going to happen and when. Routine is important for mental stability, but also just having that attitude of like, oh, something changed? Okay, what do I need to do to adapt to this?
You know, it's funny because my father, he tells this story, though, of like this futurist science teacher that he had in school. And he was like, there's going to be electric trucks and they're going to be doing this and that. And like, you know, all the things. And my dad's like, none of the things that guy said were going to be in the future ever happened. Like none of them. Right. But he said the most valuable thing he got from that teacher was you have to change with the change. And I think that's one of the reasons that my father, in some ways, like, he's really old, but he's like kind of hip. You know what I mean? I mean, yes, he has a flip phone and stuff, but like when it comes to like, you know, progressive thinking and how the societal norms have changed, like I think that had such a big impact on him. So anyway, I only bring that up to say, okay, well, I feel like I may have a little proof of that because I feel like my dad is someone who did adapt with the change. Like it didn't, you know, like we had cable before anybody, you know, like that kind of thing. Like I feel like I hope that you're right.
Well, I hope that I'm right. And I also hope that education continues to adapt with those needs, you know, to continue to encourage kids to have those skills and confidence in changing with the change.
Okay, so this one, you guys, I feel like it's kind of a bummer, I feel like, for the last one, but I also feel
it's
like
intense. Yeah.
This is probably the most important interview I did. That story represents, I think, what millions of moms are going through across the country right now. Kids with, you know, gifted kids, special needs kids.
Absolutely. I also think that there's still privileges in her own way that other families do not have.
Just no, you stop it. Roll the clip. I've always wanted to say that like my whole life, so I'm really into it.
My name is Maddie Crowley. I'm a Denver native. I live in Sun Valley community, and I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Okay, and your kids are now currently doing digital, they were doing online learning in Denver public schools. Okay, can you tell me a little bit about your experience? It's been 2 weeks.
Bad experience. So even last year I had a bad experience. When the school year ended, I ended it 2 weeks early. I was done with it. It was a headache. It was unorganized. It was everywhere. It was like confusing me and my son. And then this year, when they initially called me, they told me that school was 4 hours. So I was like, okay, let me schedule this 4 to 5 hour block to spend with my kids to make sure that they're learning, and then I can go to work. It ended up being like 5 hours, which made it 6.5 hours to actually do the work. And so it's exhausting, and I cannot work in their system right now. I think it's too much. Like the teacher will talk for an hour and a half on literacy and then expect them to answer the questions. And okay, you read a book about 30 minutes ago, and now you expect my kid to remember. It's like my kid has disabilities. And so the suggestion was, and this was both the principal and the speech therapist, I should watch the videos at night and teach him during the day. So I asked them, when do I work? And no one had an answer for that. It's like, okay, you want us here, and I'm committed to my sons, but damn, I can't feed them if I can't work. And that's what I'm finding a lot of single mothers are facing right now. I'm actually done with DPS altogether. When my son first went into kindergarten and they started the Common Core math, I went to school administrators and I made a suggestion. We parents don't know this because this wasn't from our generation. I was born in 83. I know 1 + 1 = 2. Now, the way they're doing it, you're having him take 10 different steps to get to this answer and expect him to come home with work and I be able to help him with it. And it's frustrating because he has learning disabilities. He's not able to just say, this is exactly how they showed me today. Like, they know this, and I've expressed this every year. I've expressed it in front of other parents, made the suggestion. Like one teacher once a week come with parents, and parents can bring in the problems that they have no idea about, and y'all actually show us how to do it because the parents is the child's first teacher. It's fell on deaf ears. With that, and with the first grade experience with the teacher deciding to put D's and F's on my son's work instead of saying, hey mama, he's having struggles, I think that was intentional, and I don't think that was supposed to happen at all. And there was a little racism in that, and nothing was really done about it. So like really there's been a bad taste in my mouth, and this what you call it, online bullshit has got me out the door. Like, I'm done, and they will not be in nobody's public school. I will teach them.
Do you think, like, would you ever put your children back into public school?
It would take a lot, especially if I get used to teaching them and they actually benefit from it. There's been a few suggestions that I've made to Denver Public Schools, are the administrators, and in regards to my son, like every year I ask them, have y'all figured out his learning style? No. They just want kids to learn a standard way, and it just strips them of their creativity. I have a kid in gifted and talented. Dakari might actually have learning disabilities when it comes to math, but he's been reading since he was 2.5. He's self-taught. When he started reading, it was annoying for me because I was in college and he would grab my textbooks and he was actually reading the words and would get on a big difficult word. And I'm like, oh God, I don't want to read this with you. I read that last semester, but that's how he learned how to read. And I'm like, that boy has an incredible mind. And I think they're not investing in it in the correct ways. So I'm going to take the time and see how he learns best to make sure that he's successful. And that is my job. And I do not want to depend on another teacher in the rest of my life to do something that I can do myself.
Well, I'm kind of sorry that you have to do it yourself, because on one hand, right, if you were told, okay, you're going to be a homeschool teacher now, and we understand you can't work, so we're going to give you this supplemental income. We know it's not as much as you would make, in your regular job, but we
Yeah, I
understand.
thought they should have thought about everybody's income. And I'm like a business owner. I don't know if I can continue to sit at home like that. It is depressing. I was tired. Like yesterday, it was like after an hour of sitting behind both my sons trying to keep up, my brain shut down and I actually took a nap during their school time. So I'm on the couch napping with my phone set to the timer because I know when Jabari's done, he's going to say, Mommy, I'm done. The teacher said come back at 10:30. So I'm like, go do a math assignment. Get them on the math assignment. Set my timer for 30 minutes so that I can wake back up and make him get back online. That was my yesterday. I'm a creative. I write Black history children's books. I was trying to write Black history children curriculum this year. COVID messed that up. Not only COVID, but them. DPS, the way they have scheduled out everything. So what I can do is create my curriculum through my children.
I love that. And mine too, girl.
No, y'all all gonna get the course when it's done, but I can actually create it, test it out, do activities with them and see what is the most effective way of getting this information interesting to kids their age. I've been teaching since I was 7. So I was a Sunday school teacher from 7 to 14, went back from 18 or 19 to like 24. So I have like 14 years of teaching. And then I taught up under a professor for 2.5 years. There is no way in hell that I can't teach my own kids. I just have to believe in it, and I'm just going to have to do the work. There was something I watched the other day. It says some things are going to be hard in life. Choose your hearts. I can choose that hard and be completely fine with that hard because that's mine. But I can't keep choosing this online, debilitated. And it's not only online, it's DPS, period. It is the help they're not giving him. It is all of it now. I'm done. Dakari wrote a book at 4 years old and made his own illustrations. Jabari's making illustrations and telling me they're for my books. So how dare I allow them to suffocate my kids' creativity, their dreams, and their strengths? Because that's what I see that's happening. And I'm done.
I called her before we did that interview. We had spoken, I don't remember when, it was before that though. And she was just crying. Like we were both like crying on Facebook Messenger to each other because we were having such a hard time. And she was also like me, and that they were like, we're not getting coronavirus, like, and stayed away from people and like quarantined for real and didn't see anyone. And like, so I felt this like strong affinity. And then I also was like, wow, our lives are different because of our socioeconomic backgrounds. That is like the main difference, is that the neighborhood that she lives in, her neighborhood school, the school that she goes to, is not as good as the school my kid goes to. I feel sick saying that.
Well, and doing it on her
Single
own.
mom, 2 kids, all of that. Like, I can't even imagine it, honestly.
Yeah. the point that I made before, and that I wanted to point out, was like, even with all of those barriers and struggles, her kids are very lucky to have a college educated mom with teaching experience that wants to be active in their lives and in their education.
Okay. So I get it. I'm with you, and I feel like I don't want to be guilty of having too much class privilege and shit and thinking about it, because I look at her and I'm like, she's a single Black mom, and it's like all I can think of out of that though is I am like a terrible mother in a like healthy relationship where I'm taken care of. And so it's like, for me, when I look at that, that's all I can see is I'm like, you're a fucking superhero. You know, I'm like, how are you even doing this? Then, but when you phrase it like that, I'm like, yeah, it's true. Like, she's this person that is so dedicated to her children, and she is able to do it. And she has her mom here too, you know, like she has family, she has support in ways that, you know, other people don't have. So
one of the morals to this story for me is that everybody out there on #TeamNoKids, reach out to your friends and your family that do have children and legitimately see how you can help.
So Janice, let me, I know, I really like that. So what I would like, I'd like to schedule you at at 2:00 weekdays for to watch Kingston play his games on the computer, because he just wants someone to talk to on the phone.
We can talk about that.
See, people are like, oh, I'll help you. But when you're like, no, really, I need you to spend like 30 minutes on the phone with my kid. And they're like, oh, yeah, no.
If I know when to expect it, that's fine. But last time I got a call from Kingston, we were like in Estes Park. Like
he does
in the middle of Rocky Mountain National Park.
And I'm always telling people, I'm like, listen, if if Messenger rings, it's probably Kingston. He's probably calling.
But yeah. #TeamNoKids. Check on your family and friends with kids, because they're not okay.
Them's the facts. All right, so what's coming up next for Off Color? Let's let people know so that they can know what to expect.
Yeah, we're working on a really fun project for some live events coming your way. We're going to do a series of 3 about civics and voting and the ballot.
It's gonna be fun. I feel like you're making it sound boring, Janice. Let me do it.
It always sounds boring. Civics.
No, it doesn't. Not when I do it. Let me tell you guys. This is what we're gonna do. It's called Off Color Shit You Should Know. So Off Color wants to help you and also be somebody that you trust, but we want to also empower you to like research your candidates and like know who you agree with and disagree with and what the ballots are and all of that stuff. Point is, Janice, you're beautiful.
Thank you.
Off Color is a Tan Tigress production, hosted by me, Rebecca Henderson, aka the Tan Tigress, produced and edited by Janice Motzko, and our theme song is written and produced by James Meekum. For more information on Off Color, check out our website, offcolorpod.com. Find us on social media, Off Color Pod on Twitter, Off Color Podcast on the Facebook. You can support the content that you love right here on Off Color at Tan Tigress Patreon. I want to give a very special shout out to my very first patron, Ken McCorkle, who's also my husband. He's on a top tier. He's $10 a month. Is it time to smoke weed yet?
Yeah. See you next time. Bye.
But oh my God, it's hard to do a podcast.
But I want to talk again.
Okay, say something really intelligent.
Well, did you know I got the dinosaur book?
Yes, I did, because you're like shoving it in my back and it's like poking me. So yeah, I'm aware of it. All right. Anyway, go to bed. Seriously, give us a break.